everybody, welcome back to Guys Night Lab. I'm Jesus Velasquez.
I'm Jordan Zacharias.
And anyways, happy Halloween. And, you know, every Halloween in our Guys Night Lab podcast, we usually talk about a Halloween movie.
Oh, near and dear to our
Yes,
hearts.
it's one of our favorite movies, if not our favorite Halloween movie, and possibly top 5 movie of all time. But we are going to review the newer Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. But before we get to that, we wanted to just give you a little brief history of the Halloween series because they kind of get a little jumbled up, and there's some, not spin-offs, but they're kind of all over the place. So I'm going to kind of break it down to you on each Halloween series, which is canon, which kind of goes with which either one. Just so you kind of understand the history of where Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends kind of falls in that diagram.
Right, and kind of figure out what's canon, what's not, and also if you just see one on TV randomly, like part 4, part 5, you're going to be like, huh, what's going on? This is weird. So it's like start from the beginning. We'll walk you through.
Yeah,
We'll
so
be
here
your
we go.
tour
So I'm
guides.
going to hold your hand. So this is a little Halloween history with Dr. Velasquez and Dr. Jordan?
Just call me Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch over here. Anyways, so Halloween, the original, the 1978, the one with Loomis, Laurie Strode, that is the original.
A Carpenter masterpiece.
A Carpenter masterpiece. We've probably talked about many times. It's one of our favorite movies. Obviously, watch it this Halloween. We probably watch it every Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
But that one is the original. So it starts with that one, Halloween. And then after that, it goes into Halloween 2. It's a continuation because there's a recap of Halloween 1, and part 2 takes place into the hospital.
Did you believe it?
I do believe it was.
I think she's...
So part 2 shows a recap of part 1, so it's a continuation, and then it goes into they go to the hospital, so that's where part 2 happens. So in the end of part 2, spoiler 3, 2, 1, hopefully you've seen it, but if you haven't, Michael Myers dies, and so there's Loomis. They blow up and they die. That's how that kind of series ends. If you heard of our Halloween takes the last couple of years, the whole Halloween series was supposed to be an anthology where every single year there was going to be a different Halloween movie based on different Halloween things and atmospheres and stuff. That's why Halloween 3...
Which was their idea going into part 3. They're like, Michael Myers is over, he's dead.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have some fun with the series and not have it continue with him as the main character.
Exactly. So Halloween 3 was supposed to be a new start. So Halloween 1 and 2, the Halloween focus was the serial killer named Michael Myers. So he got 2 movies, and that was supposed to be it. And then Halloween 3 was a new start of this anthology Halloween idea. And that's why it was called Season of the Witch. Stars Tom Atkins. And yeah, it's a great movie. But people were like, where's Michael Myers?
Right.
And so that's what caused this whole thing where instead of doing that anthology, they abandoned all that, and then they had to go back. So then Halloween 4, so this is where it gets tricky. So now Halloween...
Which, by the way, sorry, I just want to slip in really quick. If you haven't seen Halloween Part 3, definitely don't ignore that. We're not saying that, because that, if you take the Halloween branding off it and you don't think of it as the franchise, is actually a really fun movie. It's atmospheric, it's creepy, it's weird, but it's still got kind of a cool John Carpenter vibe, but it's again has
score
a...
still, right?
Right,
the score's
right.
awesome, yeah. So it's definitely like, it's not a Michael Myers movie, but it is a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's different. It's almost like that little hurdle in between these different movies, but
But of course, they clamored for him to come back in part 4, so I'll let
because
Steve talk
everybody
about
was
that.
like, "Where's Michael Myers?" So in part 4, it's the return of Michael Myers, and so this one, since they had to bring back Michael Myers because in part 2, Loomis and him died in the fiery explosion in the hospital. They're back. Loomis has a scar on his face, and then Michael Myers has been in like a hospital or a prison hospital in a coma for 10 years.
Right.
So that's how they explain what happened. So he's not dead. He's all wrapped up. But then in this one, he's not going after Laurie Strode. He's going after Jamie.
Right.
And that's technically Laurie Strode's daughter. And so...
and she's been adopted by another family.
She's been adopted, adopted.
And she has like an older sister, like stepsister, whatever, named Rachel.
Yes.
So they're the 2 protagonists of the film.
So yeah, so part 4... So technically... So that part 4 technically is kind of connected to part 2, but I wouldn't call them correlated like in sequence. They're not correlated, like, I guess kind of in a sense, but part 4 and part 5 are together because part 4 is the return of Michael Myers and part 5 is the revenge of Michael Myers. So part 5 takes place right after the end of part 4. So part 5, they recap what happened in part 4.
Which again, you think he's dead by the end, but of course
he comes back. And so, but the same, it's like it takes place right after, so like a year after, whatever. But it's a continuation. Same characters, same side characters, same. Rachel's in it, Jamie's in it, Loomis is in it, Myers in it. Same story.
Side note, gripe, by the way, sorry to interrupt, is this is where in part 1 and 2 the mask is pretty much the same look.
Yes,
the William Shatner mask. Part 4, he comes back, you're like, the mask looks a little different. And then by part 5, you're like, who is that?
Yeah,
the mask is totally different. And then by part 6 and onward, it just got really
it's
bad
like a
looking.
sharp look in part 5. So anyways, part 4 and 5 go together because they kind of have this intertwined side or B-side story where they're kind of talking about like this cult and stuff like that that Myers is part of. And anyways,
it's all Jamie focused on the girl. Yeah.
Like she has this connection with Michael Myers and all this stuff. And then you see this guy in like a coat, but you don't see anything about him. And anyways, at the end of part 5, this guy breaks Michael Myers away from prison. And you're like, what? That's a weird ending. So anyways, part 4 and 5 go together. Part 1 and 2 go together. 3's, it's standalone.
It's on an island,
so
yeah.
1 and 2, 3 is over here, 4 and 5, but these two are kind of connected with 1 and 2, but in a sense. So then we go to 6, which will go down here, which 6 is The Curse of Michael Myers, which came out in the 90s, where all the other ones came out in the 80s.
Starring Paul Rudd.
Yeah, starring Paul Rudd. And so The Curse of Michael Myers is technically speaking a continuation from part 5, but not directly, because The Curse of Michael Myers, Jamie, who was a child in part 5, she was like 10. Now she's like 19 or 20 or 21. But she's in the movie, in the intro, she has a daughter of her own.
Right.
Or a baby of her own. And Michael Myers is chasing her in the beginning. That's the intro of the movie. And so anyways, spoiler alert, he ends up killing Jamie, our protagonist from part 4 and 5.
In the beginning of the movie,
Yeah, they just wipe her out. And then the baby is Jamie's baby, so now Myers is going after the baby because there's this lineage and stuff of the Myers family lineage or whatever.
They completely ruined this movie, by the way.
So part 6 is this weird, like there's this space, there's space continuing and aligning the planets, and there's a cult and the Thorn Rose and all this other things. Loomis by this point is like an afterthought. He's not even like the main character.
They said in this one too, if we remember, I think we looked into it, and you might have even told me this too, is that I think Donald Pleasance didn't even really want to be in this one, right?
Yeah.
This was the last movie he ever made, which is really sad before he passed away.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that this is the way they ended it. So a lot of stuff happens in this one. It's a hard watch. It's not a great movie, and it's by far one of the worst Halloween movies out there. Yeah. Anyways,
I think it probably is the worst. Yes. But we'll talk more about
that. But so 6 is right here, kind of connected to 4 and 5, but it's on its own.
If 3 is on an island, this one's on its way out to that same island of just middle of nowhere.
So yeah, so it's like 1, 2, 3 on an island, 4, 5, and then 6 is on the island. It's connected to these 4. That's connected to these 2, but kind of by itself because it doesn't have any correlation to other stuff. But Loomis is in it. Jamie Strode's gone. Laurie Strode's gone. All this stuff. So then, after that, we hit the grand reset button in 1998, and we have Halloween H2O.
Which I actually like this one after rewatching it again last year. We watched it, and it's way better than part 6.
It's a good movie.
Way better.
The Halloween H2O takes place away from Haddonfield, because all the other ones were, except for Halloween 3, but the 1, 2, 4, and 5, and 6 are in Haddonfield, where H2O is at a boarding school. So here's where it gets tricky. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. All in a sense kind of connected except for 3. But then we go to H2O, which is the it's not the return, it just says H2O. So it's 20 years. So it's the 20-year anniversary. So it's in 1998. The original came out in 78. So then what happened was they reset the clock here, or reset the origin, where that one is supposed to take place after part 2. So after part 2, it's like going back to where Jamie Lee Curtis is alive, and she has a kid. So here's the thing. So in this one, she has a son who's a teenage son. Loomis had already passed away in real life, or Donald Pleasance passed away in real life. So they have these things about him, and they have these things that he still like survived the thing in the hospital.
Yeah.
So then
Josh Hartnett is the kid.
Josh Hartnett is a son. So then what we have to do is, because it goes on part 2 and she has a son now, we have to ignore 4 and 5 because Jamie Lloyd or Strode or whatever, she was supposed to be Laurie Strode's daughter, but
Right,
that's
right.
erased now. So there is no 4 and 5 in this timeline. It just so no 4, 5, no 6. So we're going 1, 2, H2O. So then that happens. So then at the end of so after H2O, we go to Halloween Resurrection, another interesting movie.
Busta Rhymes.
Busta Rhymes, but that one recaps H2O. So those two go together. So H2O go together, and Resurrection and H2O go together. And Resurrection is just, I mean, I don't know why it's just not a spin-off or a different
It's
complete
not
movie.
good at all.
Because it's not really, there's no Laurie Strode, or actually she is, and she gets murdered in the first intro.
Yep.
So she's gone, no Loomis, no Laurie Strode, no Jamie, no nothing. There's nothing to connect any of the past things, whether they're connected or not. And that one kind of just ends. It just ends.
Right.
And that's kind of like your Halloween series right there. So 1, 2, 4, 5, kind of 6. So 1, 2 on an island together, 3 by itself, 4, 5 together, 6 kind of by itself, and then H2O and Resurrection
So
together.
7 and an 8 are together. Yeah.
Exactly. Even though 8 is kind of on its own too.
Right,
but
right.
They all connect. So then after that, Rob Zombie comes along, has his own vision, and he made 2
Blech.
movies back to back. They're an interesting psychological look on Michael Myers, but they're kind of bad.
I just don't like any of his characters usually in his movies.
Yeah,
Where all the people you're just like, I don't care if they get wiped out. I don't care if they.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was pretty brutal. So, but even in part 2 is just, and I don't know what that mess is, but whatever. It's his own take and it's his own vision. So
That's
whatever.
when he ends in the pool, right?
I
Isn't there a
remember.
dried out pool that he ends in? Anyway. that's
No,
fine.
yeah. So anyway, so those two go together. And then I'm going to talk about this because we're going to get into these movies individually. But then after that, we get into Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. Those 3 go together. But Halloween 2018 resets it again.
Yep.
So forget because in this one, we'll talk about it, but Laurie Strode has a daughter again. But that daughter is not Jamie from Halloween 4. It's a
Right.
new daughter, which eliminates the Halloween H2O where she had Josh Hartnett as a son.
Yep.
So that angle is gone. So H2O and Resurrection are ignored.
So I think we're at 3 resets of the
Yes.
franchise already.
Yeah. So Jamie Lloyd, the 4 and 5 is gone. That
Yeah.
daughter doesn't exist. And then the Hartnett, the son doesn't exist. So that angle's on. So this one, after taking place after the second one, so there's no hospital either.
Right.
This one just ends that part 1.
It goes part 1 to the new Halloween.
Part 1 to the new Halloween, and then from the 2018 to Halloween Kills to Halloween Ends. And so that is your map of Halloweens. They're connected, but they're not. They're all different because in different versions, Laurie has different children in different canons, different origins.
Right.
So
It's a lot. But
I'm
we're
trying
going to review the
yeah.
newest 3, though, next. So we're going to get into those.
Yes. And so the Rob Zombie ones, I kind of don't even include them in the main because they're just kind of a reimagining. So they're not a reboot. They're not anything. I really just see those as like Rob Zombie's films. Like he just made a film from himself of his vision of Halloween because there's nothing in those movies that connect it to any of the other Halloweens. All the other Halloweens have some sort of connection in
Right.
itself. Even the Halloween 3, I feel like there's still like, even though it's not connected, it's just like kind of bridged there.
Right.
So,
right.
because if it wasn't for Halloween 3, they wouldn't bring back Michael Myers. Not because it was a terrible movie, because that's what the fans wanted.
Yeah.
But the Rob Zombie ones are just on their own.
Don't
And-
recommend them.
Yeah. So, I mean, but if you're into that style of filming, then
Yeah.
for sure. But that's my Halloween history. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the trilogy of Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends.
Yep. Stay
right.
tuned.
Take care.